so grateful to be here. I'm seeing faces of people I absolutely love, and it's just an honor. It's funny. My wife said, "So when did you commit to this?" And I said, well, "I think it was like 2 weeks ago, Stu, or something like that." And at that time, I had been in Canada, I had been in Alabama. I just gotten home. I got your text, and I was like, "Yeah, I think that'll work." And then as it got closer, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I wish it was sooner. I can't wait to get connected and reconnected." And people who I just love so much. And it's a funny time, isn't it? I think that so many of us kind of came out of the pandemic, and we just jumped right back into our communities. And some of us were still trying to navigate maybe post or even during the pandemic. I know I made so many promises to myself about who I wanted to be when it was over, when I thought it was going to be over, the kind of person I wanted to become, how I wanted to change certain things about myself. And I'm really working hard on keeping those promises. It's an interesting time, right? You get out of your time alone and hunkering down and isolation, and then you pop out and you're like, oh my gosh, I just miss everybody. And then I think in the back of our minds, we're all thinking is, I don't want to forget all the commitments I made to myself and all the ways I believe I wanted to do my life more lovingly, more openly, more courageously, more creatively. So I think what you represent to me is a reminder, because I think the Epic is really a group of encouragers. I think we're kind of we're sort of an intentional community, but it's a disguise for being a spiritual entity of hope.
Yeah. And I think it's the value of community. I mean, I think that's the value. It was Melanie posted in the chat room that just being in the room with all of us brings her so much joy. And I think that's true. I mean, what is it, do you think, James, especially in 2022 or no, 2023, with all of the different things that we are experiencing as a human race, the challenges that we experience, why is it I'm finding that community is so powerful? Why do you think that we're striving? We're wanting it?
Well, I think just from a kind of a neurochemical standpoint, and Scott, my brother, will, I know, violently agree with this, is that the same center in our brain that craves wonderful food is also the same part of our brain that craves wonderful people and belonging. It's the same place in our brain. And when we don't have that nourishment, it's the same pain we feel in the brain when we feel alone or don't have that sense of belonging. So just think about that, is that we are hardwired, beautifully wired to belong. And it gives us a sense of satiety, it gives us satisfaction, it gives us fulfillment. So if we're starving for community, or we're not getting our fix from people that we really do belong to and they belong to us, it hurts. It literally hurts us physiologically. And I think that's really why when we all pop in, we don't know why, but immediately we're showing our molars, we're smiling big. We can't help ourselves because those centers in our brain are like going, oh my gosh, my people, I'm being fed. Literally, I'm being fed.
We were in the room together in 2022 in December during Epic, and it was the first event that most people had been to since the closure of the world. And I mean, the emotion was palpable. I mean, it was such an emotional experience for all of us that were in that room. The idea of being together and being close, and the hugs and the conversations and the love it was just something that we had missed, I think, as a society. We miss it all the time.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone would, love to lean into this, but I think that what I've noticed, and this is just, me just being open to where I feel so comfortable to tell you all this. I also feel like I haven't even begun to touch how much more I have inside of me to give, how much more love, the reservoirs that I really feel I get a chance to tap into. And I'm feeling really pulled to remind myself that those reservoirs are endless. And I think all of us would probably want to say, gosh, if there's anything I don't want to forget, is that I believe my capacity to love, my capacity to care, my capacity to want to really put myself into deep vulnerability because it feels so juicy and wonderful, it's boundless and endless. And I'm not going to allow myself not to live up to that knowing.
But you and I have had deep conversations, and we've been honest with each other, and we both, even you, I don't know, I don't want to like change who he's thinking, but even you have tough times. Even you have days that you struggle. Even you have days that it's hard to get up and smile. Even you have days where it's, those are just days that you have as well. And I kind of, when I realized that you had those days, I felt better.
Well, you know what, everybody, I have a lot of those days. And I think that anyone who's, participating in the spiritual odyssey that is this planet right now, we're having hard days. I think spiritual people lean into things that are hard by nature. So I think more, I don't mean everybody, I'm having more hard days these days than I am having easy, wonderful, light days. But I really relish that because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities in that for teaching myself, where I've got room to grow, where I may be holding back. And it's interesting. And I think for a lot of us, and gosh, I mean, I'm looking at you, Sarah. I love you so deeply. We've talked openly about losses in our life. I know Alec had a loss recently, and we were talking about how I think sort of as spiritual people or people who are interested in personal development, growth, we want to put ourselves in this river where we just keep on moving in this hedonic way of, accomplishing more, growing more, reading more books, going to the seminars. And then I think I'm getting more and more enticed to want to be the riverbed and not just the river. The river's just going. And I feel like I want to sit some things out and sit in the riverbed and allow myself to feel what's happening as things are coming through me, going by me. And I really feel tonight, one of the things I want to share with people as just someone who, like you, is dedicated to the work of becoming the person I know in my heart I long to be, and sometimes I show up as, and sometimes I don't. I'm really okay leaning into the places that I know I'm not as good myself as I ideally would love to be. And when we lean into those places, I think sometimes we discover there's a lot of trauma from a place in our life, an earlier time in our life, childhood stuff, stories we've told ourselves, stories people have told us about ourselves. And I think for me, more and more, I'm really getting interested into the idea of leaning so deeply into those places that I used to just kind of not want to look, not want to see. I'm leaning into them so I can fall in love with them. I want to lean in deep enough so I'll fall into them, so I can learn to befriend them, be softened by them, and eventually learn to love them. Because I know that's where my next reservoir, my next opportunity to let that next wave of love come out, circulate, be of a beneficial presence on the planet. And, I've been reading a lot, and I'm sure many of you have heard of a good friend whose name is Lisa Miller. She works at Columbia. She's a professor who's been in medicine for years and years. But she recently started a whole new area in medicine at Columbia. It's basically called the spiritual brain. And the spiritual brain is someone, it's like us. I mean, everyone here tonight is part of her research. She says it's basically a brain that belongs to a human who has a desire to show up deep in the world, has a desire to love in the world, has a desire to grow and evolve and become ever more in the world. And she's been doing functional MRIs on these brains, and she's seeing that not only these brains so beautiful in their evolution and the way that they're structuring and restructuring all the time, she also says this is a brain that has the ability to read the world and know how to empathize with the world and how to be more compassionate in the world. So it's almost like the spiritual brain gets a chance to really be of a presence and a benefit to understanding how do we navigate these times and do it with a level of reverence, a level of courage, a level of thoughtfulness, but also a level of humility and grace, which I think is a lot of what this planet is asking for us. Leaders like all of you, it's sometimes, right, we want to lead, we want to encourage, and sometimes it's good for us to just be on the riverbank and just allow ourselves to be in grace, allow ourselves to be humble, and just watch and know when it's time for us to insert ourselves into experiences, and equally important, know when to pull ourselves out so we can gather ourselves and strengthen ourselves. One thing I think I'm learning more and more, everyone, is that my time alone is so critical to my leadership. I need to be in the woods every morning and watch the sun come up by myself. And I love to sit in the trees by myself for a good 20, 30 minutes and ponder what my leadership looks like, first and foremost, for me, for God, for the universe. And then when I insert myself back in the world, I'm just so much better at being myself as a leader versus trying to intellectualize what a leader needs to do right now. I really find more and more I don't want to be an intellectual leader. I don't want to know stats. I don't want to know stuff. I don't want to know studies. I just want to know how to love and lead with that.
You know, it's interesting, the evolution of my decade of spending time with you, more than 12 years spending time with you, is when I first, a lot of your stuff was all about the science and the blood and the dark chocolate and the kale and the exercise and the routines. And I remember we were at an event you did for about 100 parents up at the camp, and you had, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 slides in a deck that you were going to go through, and you went through 3,
I
and
mean,
then you
dude,
never
that's
went
the story
past
of
the
my
third
life. I
slide.
love building amazing decks, and I never use them.
And I think the slide, if I remember this, the slide that you stopped on, the third slide, was about love. It was about compassion and love and being compassionate. And I think it's interesting because through all of the science, and you're a very smart person. I mean, you know a lot of things about science and about the human body and how it works best and how to make it work the best and how to optimize performance. It does come back down to simply that, doesn't it? Like, I mean, as a
It
leader, as a family member, as an entrepreneur, everything comes back down to that.
it does, and what's so beautiful, and just a little bit of science, because I know that we all, as much as we have this spirit world, we're also wonderfully geeky and how we can kind of take cool stuff and go, oh, how do I use that? We're all very familiar with oxytocin. Dr. Scott would give us a whole, amazing overview of oxytocin when
And
it
Dr.
comes to
Greg would
what
too.
what Kara's getting ready to do with a baby and have a baby. Um, Oxytocin is not only just what it does on a hormonal level in terms of bonding, it's the number one chemical for trust. It's the number one chemical for fighting inflammation. And what we all felt when we first booted up, when Kara let us in and Tori let us in, and we get an opportunity immediately lay eyes on our tribe. And the first thing that happens is our bodies start to release oxytocin. So oxytocin is happening once we lay eyes on the people that we love, that we trust, that we feel this connection to. And I really believe that the thing that I'm more and more curious about is how do we leverage things like oxytocin to not just build bridges and create trust and bonds, but really understand that oxytocin is beautifully contagious. And it's contagious in such a way with simple eye contact, simple ways in which studies show that when we smile, we release more oxytocin. So I think in communities like this, everyone I think would agree. This is so safe here, right? Once the community opens up here online, we immediately like, oh my gosh, here's my people. Oxytocin is flowing. This is safe. This is awesome. This is cool. And then when we all say goodnight here and we return to our loved ones, our cats, our dogs, whoever, more oxytocin. But tomorrow morning, many of us are going to go out in the world, and it's not as easy to be a purveyor and a transmitter of oxytocin. We tend to put up our guard a little bit. We tend to not necessarily feel safe in putting it out there. I think what Lisa's work at Columbia is telling us, and more importantly, what Stu, the work that you're doing with Epic and all of us here doing right alongside of you, is to outlove the hate that's presently circulating on the planet, to outshine the darkness that's everywhere on the planet. It's easy to be an oxytocin ninja in the Epic community. But can we really take what we believe and feel so strongly here, so safe and circulating here? Are we willing to actually bring it outside of the Epic experience and bring it to people who we know? We sense loneliness. We sense people who are separated from themselves. We sense people who are looking for belonging. And our busyness can really be a hindrance to oxytocin. And I'm finding my time in the woods or my time sitting on the metaphorical riverbed versus being in the river, being busy, accomplishing, going on to the next thing. I want to be in the riverbed so I can recognize when I see someone suffer. I want to be available when I'm feeling myself suffer. And I want to be available to understand that right now, the currency that the planet is most longing for is simply being available to notice when someone is really going through what we know all too well we've been through too, then heroically recognizing it and building a bridge to it so we can come together over something and have a healing. The planet right now is starving for an epic experience of what it means to be a human who's not afraid to be the human that we really know in those reservoirs of experience that really is calling us right now. Every single one of us is calling after we say goodbye tonight to what we're going to do tomorrow. And how will we show up on the planet? What will we do to surprise ourselves with the courage that we feel that we are willing to exhibit and demonstrate it? So when we go to bed tomorrow night, we feel that beautiful sense of peace and possibility that we were the ones who were not afraid to step into the void and carry something that really built a bridge to others.
Hmm. And that translates into everything, doesn't it? Like literally every interaction.
Every interaction. I mean, there's a great book. We could do a book club on this if you guys are interested. It's called Love 2.0. It's written by Barbara Fredrickson. She's a doc from North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and she wrote a book that's really all about these two types of love. I mean, I would call this, you guys, this is love 1.0. This is easy. Oh my gosh, look at you guys. You're beautiful. You're smiling. You're kind. You guys are just channels of oxytocin. This is you. This is why I love this community. And then there's love 2.0. That's the scarier love that happens when we walk by someone on the sidewalk and we heroically don't look at our phone. We heroically don't look at traffic. We heroically go, oh my gosh, here comes this being who may not look like me, may not have a good energy, may not have something, whatever excuse we want to build into our narrative. And we make the contact. The soft, generous eyes. And under our breath, we may say something like, I see you, I love you, to that person under your breath. Because what Barbara's work says, when we do love 2.0, the heroic interactions of drive-by love and not being afraid to be noticed and being seen, that actually potentiates oxytocin maybe 3 and 4 times more than what's happening here. Why? Because we're going into the deepest parts of ourselves to trust. Mm. And I think this is the training ground, right? Epic is a training ground, Stu. When you and I talked about what this wanted to be for you, and when you were talking about with Kelsey and Kara and Greg and all sort of the original folks who've been co-conspiring with you here at Epic, it was really all about it being a place that was safe to love, safe to have belonging, safe to have connection. But I think you also have seen this is giving people permission when they leave the experience of being together, whether it's tonight virtually or in Toronto in December. We all feel empowered, and we also feel a responsibility to take what we do in that room, to take what we do tonight, and do it in the harder ways that are much more important these days. The ways that really put us in a place where we're watching ourselves walk down that street, whether it's metaphorically or in real life, and witnessing ourselves leaning into love in a way that gives us such permission to love ourselves ever more deeper because of our participation in how humanity needs us right now.
It's so true. I did a TEDx about 5 years ago, 2019, I guess it was, or 2018 now. And the whole concept was micro decisions having macro impacts. And the lessons I was talking about, the ideas, the examples I had were about the fact that we can do such little, tiny, minute micro actions with our interactions with other human beings and our decisions that we make that will have eventually macro impacts. The challenge is that we don't think we can, as individuals, change people's lives because we don't think we have the power to do that, because who are we to do that? And when I walk into a room, and I'm not trying to brag, but my goal, if anyone knows, my goal is to literally leave with them saying either that guy was weird with a smile on their face, or he just made my day. And it doesn't take much to make someone's day in 2023. Usually with me, it's a joke. Around Easter, I walk into a place and I say, and Kelsey and Kara will tell you that this is true. I walk into a place and say, "Hey, why did the Easter egg hide?" And well, because he was a little chicken. And people will laugh at that joke and they don't see it coming and they smile. We interact. In the Chicago airport I was in a few weeks ago, I was at the United Airlines lounge, and I came in and she says, "Ticket," and I just said, and I looked at her and I said, "What did the one snowman say to the other snowman?" And she was completely caught off guard. And I said, "Hey, do you smell carrots?" And next thing I know, I've got 4 United Airlines employees telling jokes to each other, and we're all laughing. And the entire 10 of us, and this now became 10 of us, we're all laughing and smiling, and in a crazy busy airport. It doesn't take much to show that love. We don't have to overcomplicate it. And people need it. They're dying for it. They're desperate for it, and what you're saying. So I wanted to give my take on that.
No, and thank you for being that way. And you are that way, Stu. We all know you, and we've had the blessing of watching you love that way. And there's there's 2 things I do, and I do want to share with you tonight. There's a lot I really believe is so connected these days to resilience. And I'm sure if you just want to nod your head, if you think about sometimes where your loving is leaving you shallow in relationship to your reserves. You're putting so much good energy out in the world, and sometimes you're like, man, I got nothing left. Or I'm this close to breaking. I'm tired. I'm triggered. My judgment is in a not so healthy place, maybe even mostly towards myself. I've been reading a lot about sort of the physiology of resilience, and really even equally important, sort of the emotional container where resilience resides. And they've actually studied, people who, from an adrenal standpoint, hormonally, how do we really have resilience? And there's 3 things, and they're actually really happening tonight, which is really cool. So this is 2 studies. One came out of UCLA, one came out of Stanford, and they really talked about resilience. And this is really for spiritual people, because that's what we're all about. So the first thing is character. They said these 3 traits that you can do to build emotional and physiological resilience. Number 1 is identify your virtue. So if your virtue is kindness, your virtue is love, your virtue is telling jokes in O'Hare, whatever your virtue is, the most important thing you can do is participate in your virtue. Like, no, this is what I'm doing. Like in the morning, I've shared a lot of my morning rituals with most of you guys. And I'm wonderfully predictable. I've been doing the same thing for the last 30 years. I'm going to do it, probably, God willing, for the next 30 years, if I'm still here. I do the same thing every morning for 2.5 hours. It never is different. But the first thing I always do is I lay in bed and I put my hand on my heart and I say, okay, James, what's the virtue today? What is it? And I sit silently and I let my heart really connect with it. And then it'll pop up, I'm like, it's going to be grace. It's going to be courage. It's going to be whatever it is. And then my goal throughout the day, as Aristotle said, we're teleological beings, which is a fancy way of saying every human being has to have a target that's deeply virtuous to have a life that's deeply meaningful. Gosh, I love that.
Say it one more
We
time.
need to have a target that's deeply virtuous to have a life that's deeply meaningful. So lay in bed tomorrow morning, you guys, and just come up with your virtue. And then the goal is, as Sonia Lyubomirsky, who's an incredible researcher on happiness, says, practice your virtue all day long. That will do amazing things for the first and most important thing for resilience, character. Our character resides in our ability to express unbridled our favorite virtue. There's our character right there. Number 2, community. We have it. We're in it. Our ability to be inclusive, our ability to invite who we sense are feeling disconnected and lonely, looking for belonging. And I think all of us would probably agree, how many times have we, in the iteration of our life, and I think, I know a few of you know this. So this is I turned 60 I turned 60 3 months ago. I mean, holy God, 60. What is up with that? I mean, everyone in my life when I was a little boy who was 60 was ancient. Like they were old people and they were on their way out. And I'm like 60 and I am just like, I am so full of life. And that's not an ego statement, guys. My soul is on fire at 60. I am so crazy about being 60. And then I think about the things that have made my life so beautiful. I'm going to be married to this incredible woman. This August will be our 30th wedding anniversary. So that's my wife, Deb. That's us 30 years ago right there. So look at that awesomeness. So I'm turning 60. I'll be married 30 years and I've been sober for 40. And sober for 40 is I really feel like that's the thing that gave me everything. When I stopped taking every drug under the sun to an excess, my life caught fire. When I stopped taking drugs to escape or try to fit in and became clean and sober, oh my God. Then all of a sudden I belonged. So 60, 40, 30 is this year. And so really for those things, that represents community, which is number 2 for resilience. And the third thing is what I want every single one of you to hear right now. Just like you, I'm insecure lots in my life. Just like you, I cry daily. Just like you, I have uncontrolled laughter for the silliest things that I can't wait to go and tell my wife or text my kids and do a funny video with our dogs. Just like you, I get scared and lonely. Just like you, I get hopeful. Just like you, I get giddy with grace. Just like you, I'm a human absolutely having this experience of what it means to be me, just like it does to be you. And that is our contribution to the world. Owning who we are, unapologetically, leaning into it, is our contribution. And just as Lisa says, the spiritual brain is a brain of contribution, authenticity, realness, love, light, electricity, and currency of oxytocin. We're all those things, you guys. And the more that we're not afraid to become the channel of the truth of who we are, the more that we contribute to the most powerful experiment, which is us here on this planet, making this planet more beautiful because of us. So just like you, I'm doing it right alongside of you.
You know, people may not think that when they see you. And I think that's incredible that you can share that with us. Because, you know, imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I know that, speaking for that I go through that every day, multiple times. You know, stepping on the stage at Epic, I question my right to be there. That, I mean, I think that's great as a leader to know that it's okay for us to be in a constant state of evolution.
Absolutely. And I think those 3 C's are beautiful, right? Character, contribution, community. Put those someplace, put those next to your toothpaste, your toothbrush in the morning. So you have a little sticky note on your mirror. You wake up, you turn the light on, you see yourself in the mirror. It's good morning, God. It's not good God morning. It is, oh my goodness, the 3 C's: character, contribution, community. I'm living them. What's my virtue? I'm expressing it. I'm exploiting my virtue because I'm a teleological being. I'm Aristotle meeting Sonia Lyubomirsky in real life, right here and right now. That is just such a beautiful, simple, wonderful way to treat yourself to life.
I agree. I have 2 questions for you. Can I ask them to you?
Of course.
These come from some of our members. Can you offer advice for combating burnout in a capitalist society? How can we find grace, balance, and slowness?
Oh my goodness, that is I wrote that question.
Yeah, you did. It was suspicious. It was suspicious.
I must have wrote that and just written that and used someone else's name. Well, I think we said it a little while ago. Resilience is critical. Those 3 things they're clinically proven to help us to not burn out. But if I may offer up a couple anecdotes, because I'm a huge fan of plant medicine. I love plant medicine. I'm a huge fan of adaptogenic botanicals. So right out of the gate, I feel like we need extra support that adaptogenic botanicals will give us. So I'm a huge fan of things like astragalus. I love holy basil. I love rhodiola, ashwagandha. Those four are incredible for
I
protecting our
don't know three of
adrenals.
those four.
What's that?
I've never heard of three of those four things.
Oh my God, aren't those great Scrabble words, you guys? Can you imagine like you're playing Scrabble and people go, whoa,
Yeah.
ashwagandha, get out of town. What is that? And you're like, you're like, so yeah, those four, you guys, they manage cortisol, they augment your adrenal defense, they help to keep your hormonal opportunity in harmony. That's a beautiful way of expressing it. So it'll keep you in harmony hormonally. And so I look at those four things. And I know you guys, many of you, I know Sarah, you are a devotee of the cold shower, the cold plunge. I know Greg is. I get in my cold plunge 5 minutes, full first thing in the morning at 39 degrees Fahrenheit, which I have no idea is Celsius. I have no idea what that is. So after I do my virtue, I literally I walk outside. I live in the woods in the mountains, so there's no neighbors. And I'm naked. I just drop into my cold plunge, and I'm in there for 5 minutes praying, literally. And I'm praying in my cold plunge because the dopamine reset that is giving us. So you guys, if you don't have a cold plunge, you don't have a lake like Stu does right by his house, just the last, ideally at least 30 seconds of your shower, go as cold as you possibly can. And get it on your front, on your chest, get it on your back, get as much surface area of that cold water because that'll reset your dopamine. And listen, every single one of us is on the verge or we've already crossed over into dopamine burnout. We're just in this endless cycle of trying to motivate ourselves, trying to get up for the next event, get up for the next day. So dopamine really starts to erode over time and our receptors get just dull. So cold water resets us. So we have the combination of those botanicals. We have the cold plunge. And then, guys, there is nothing more clinically relevant than what we're seeing today with what's happened in Finland. Finland is now 6 years in a row the happiest country in the world. And scientists are trying to figure out what it is, right? Oh, so many cool things. The number one thing they say that they're doing in Finland, they literally 87% of Finns spend at least 20 minutes in the woods every single day.
Yeah, huge believer in that. This is huge.
Right.
Yes.
They just get in the woods because when you're in the trees, when you're in, you're in, I'm looking at wildflowers right now. You're in any kind of nature. And if you live in the city, just looking at the blue sky will do it. Cortisol goes down, heart rate goes down, oxytocin gets reignited, serotonin goes up, dopamine goes up. So just take yourself outdoors for a quick walk in the woods or in a garden or in a park or under a canopy of trees in a city street. Those three things will buoy your adrenals. They'll gift your spirit with curiosity and they'll re-engage you into physiological harmony so you don't burn out because every single one of you is a healer. Every single one of you is a healer. You cannot burn out on us. You need to prioritize your self-love and your self-care and your self-compassion because that will be your number one form of social activism. That will move more people than anything else, more than astragalus, ashwagandha, rhodiola, or holy basil. You and your conviction of self-love and self-care is a much greater catalyst for others to do the same than anything else.
That is the first off, Melanie asked me to ask you, could you please repeat the four herbs again? The four.
Absolutely. Melanie, so it's ashwagandha, astragalus, holy basil, and rhodiola.
Scott has put
Dr.
it into the
Scott
chat
has
room.
it down there. He's a functional medicine doc, so he's probably got an IV of these set up as we speak.
I do like your treehouse talks. I started doing a thing called a daily active movement. I'm a big fan of a doctor named Kelly McGonigal who did a book about the art of movement or the power of movement, and it's all about the basic just idea of moving every day is such a powerful thing for mental health, physical health. Not about being an elite athlete, but just about moving. And so I go walk in the woods every day now, James, and I post a little video on my Instagram. called my daily active movement. I used to call it my daily movement, and people thought it sounded like I was talking about my morning prowls.
That what they're going, how big was number 2 today, Stu?
Right. So time for my daily movement, I would say. And so so my daily active movement, and I it literally, there is an unbelievable amount, and I am not as smart as you or Dr. Scott or Dr. Greg or all the doctors we have, Dr. Rob, and all the doctors we have part of our program and our community, but all the different fields you all know things about. But I will tell you that I've been working with kids for 30 years in the forest. I put kids out into the woods, and we have an incredible time. I'm doing it again in 2 weeks. And I will tell you, when I put these kids into environments where they are disconnected from this stuff, and they are just with themselves in the woods, I literally cannot share with you the amount of everything changes. Everything changes in just a short period of time. And it's incredible. And one time we asked it, we had 3 days into the camp, none of the kids have technology in their hands. They're out in the woods for the first time in many, many moons. They're playing, they're being goofy, they're dirty, they smell, it's fantastic. And this, we talked about them not having their cell phones. And one of the kids said, I asked them if they missed their cell phones. And they said no, almost all of them. And I said, why not? And they said, we feel less stress. We don't feel like we have to keep up with the Joneses. That's not what they said. That's my old person saying. But they don't feel like that comparison contrast they have constantly. They feel they're alone in the woods, beautiful, connected. Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, I think what's really interesting, to further that, Stu, is that what we know, time in nature, it catalyzes the part of our brain that's most deeply connected to self-awareness, pure and simple. We know ourselves better when we're in nature, and that carries us more authentically when we go back into the world. I think that in of itself that's all I need to hear to do that. I think what we're all trying to figure out is it's easy to be amazing here at the Epic community. This is easy, right? This is cool. This is safe. This is highly inclusive. I feel so at home with you. When I go out in the world, I need to carry this as long as possible. So going in the woods will give you that resilience, that self-awareness, so you do not lose yourself. You don't lose yourself, and you don't give yourself away. There's a beautiful Sanskrit word. Many of you have heard me talk about this before. It's Arambashara. Don't worry about spelling it. I'm dyslexic. I can't spell it. But Arambashara simply means all of us, even the deeply spiritual ones, are heroes in the beginning. But it's truly heroic to finish authentically and whole. Boom. How many of us are heroes in the beginning? New diet, new exercise, new community, new relationship, new. But how are we years into it? How are we showing up? Me, 60 years old, and man, why do I have a dogmatic morning? So I don't lose track of my heroic self. So I don't forget who I want to be. I don't forget the vow. Every single one of you, when you took your first breath, when you came on this planet, you took a vow. I believe every spiritual thing about what this means, you took a vow, you took your first breath, and that vow was, I was not going to forget my essence. I was not going to forget the truth of who I am. And no matter how much life throws at me, I will never forget how much I am here to love myself into a continual evolution of this ever improving experience of what it means for me to be fully alive myself. So wherever you are in your self-care right now, give yourself permission to reinstate or reclaim that vow and put a practice in place, your virtue, your connection to your heart's calling, and live up to it.
Right. Yes.
Right? I mean, there's not much more to say to that one, right? You guys.
No, I didn't know how to add on to that one. I was just
I mean, that's the beauty, and I think maybe I'm probably the oldest guy here, and I'm with you guys, so I have the beauty of being the elder that I can tell you guys all the cool things I've failed at in my life, and all the cool things I'm learning because I've been here longer than all of you. I love that role. I've always wanted to be the elder, and I'm here. This is cool.
I was having a conversation last week with Graham. We were having a lovely catch up on the Zooms in Australia, and we were both commenting on the fact that these type of connections are so valuable, and how we both desperately were talking about how much we need this type of connection. We need to have these conversations. We need to be open to these conversations. And I'm so damn grateful that you are with us tonight from the bottom of my heart. And I just want to say thank you. I have a couple more things to say to you before we cut this, because I want to be, cautious. I want to be aware of your time spent with us, but thank you, James. Thank you for being there for me for more than a decade. If you ever had the chance, anybody in this conversation, to sit beside James at an event, we have sat back in the back row of events before, just him and I, for hours on end, days on end. And every so often he will just turn around and hand me some sort of a concoction I have to drink. And I never ask what it is. I just do it. And he's the only person in the world that I would do that for. You've been there through some tough times, and you've been there through some great times. And I think anybody in this conversation, this call, who has met you knows your sincerity is tenfold. And who you are is a gift to all of us. And I wanted to say thank you for that.
It's an honor, Stu. I love you. I love you so deeply. I'm a huge fan of your heart, and I'm a huge fan of how you didn't keep your heart to yourself. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I don't want to. There's so many things that people are commenting on in here. The chat box is got lots of comments, and people are taking in what you're saying, and they're looking at. They're all apparently. Melanie or somebody just said they've already ordered all those things. Prob's talking about science in there, and Greg Wells says he's here, and he says we're kicking it, we're doing great. And I mean, this is your last chance. Anybody want us to throw a little question in the box? So I want to let James go because he's been with us for a long time. And James,
come up with. I love a question that really, really puts you out there. So if you're feeling like, man, I'm really working on something, I'm working through something, something wicked hard's going on, I have a pretty good feeling you're not alone. So if there's something that I may have
some insight
for, please. Or if it's just something light and easy, I'm cool with that too, of course.
Yeah, I've been trying to replicate your sandalwood smells.
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
so everyone knows the olfactory nerve, which is the cranial nerve of smell, is our most spiritually rich of all of the cranial nerves. Our sense of smell is so deeply rooted in the most beautiful things. And hey, Greg, I love you, brother. Look at you, man. You look awesome. You look awesome.
Greg and Ingrid in a car driving across the country.
Is that Ingrid next to you?
Yeah, he's right by the mountains.
Yeah,
I think Greg just pointed at you. Greg just pointed at you at the mountains.
If you're in Colorado, come over for dinner. I'm making dinner tonight.
I'm not. I just arrived in Revelstoke. We literally just drove from 4,000 kilometers, literally just stopped. Ingrid is with me, Adam's with me, and I just had to say hello and say I love you, buddy, and thank you for being so amazing for all of us. You've gotten us through a decade, and I'm just so deeply grateful to have you in my life, along with Stu and everybody else on the call. So I just wanted to express my gratitude and love, man. That's it.
I love you too, buddy. I love you, Ingrid. You guys, welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you.
All
right, I'm going to tune out and just listen.
Okay. So yeah, guys, I will share my recipe. So if I've had the opportunity to hug you, you've smelt me. I am a huge fan of my own personal concoction of about 7 essential oils. It is part of my ritual that once I get out of the cold plunge, I put it all over my chakras. I rub it into the different chakras. So yeah, I'll share my recipe of the oils that I wear because I've done a lot of research on what oils really bring the best of us out. And, there's a lot of things you can do to manage hormones and stress and whatnot with oils. I have this blend. I just call it my best human. It's my best human smell. I just want to
It is
smile
good.
throughout the day and go, don't forget to be your best human. Don't forget how good you are. Don't dim your light to make the world more comfortable. Take a deep breath, smell yourself into the next exploration of who you want to be, because you are already that. Show up and be who you are.
You say that when you put on your
Yeah.
smells?
Yep.
That's amazing. Sarah says, can I order a case?
Sarah, you absolutely can order a case, but you have to come down to my house and pick it up.
I'm coming with you, Sarah.
You too, Kevin Dooley. You have to come to my house and pick it up too.
James, thank you so much for being part of our evening. People, I think, people are kind of fading out here, and I could talk to you all night, and I just want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Absolutely.
You know, I hope those people are on the call. You'll see us in December. You'll come December. If you're not part of Epic, I hope you decide to become part of Epic. We'd love to see you there. Last thoughts, James.
My last thought is go to bed tonight under the influence of grace. Wake up tomorrow morning open to your virtue and heroically express it with wild abandon, because your virtue is your truth, and your virtue is your primary medicine for bringing you most alive, and in turn becoming most contagious to everyone who has the blessing of laying eyes on you.
I love that. I love it. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Stu. I love you guys. I love everybody.
Oh, and before you go, everybody, we're doing a back-to-back for the first time ever in Fireside Chats. Next Thursday, we're hanging out with Dr. Robin Hanley-Defoe, the expert in resiliency. Her new book, Stress Wisely. She's joining us. She's amazing. So come hang out next Thursday with us again and hang out with Robin Hanley-Defoe. She's amazing. So, my friend, thank you. I love you with all of my heart.
I love you all. Have a great evening. Thanks for hanging out. I so appreciate you. Thanks for the time.